around town featuring what's happening here in the greater Concord area. And as we get started here in 2016, we are now in the month of January, and of course it's been a cold one. But Christmas gone, New Year's gone. What are we looking forward to? Well, some of you are looking forward to the Super Bowl coming up in early February. Me, I'm looking forward to the college football championship next week. But for many others, it's politics, and I mean politics. If you think you've had it all during the fall, spring, and summer last year, wait till you get this month coming up. And with me today is I have a returning guest, is Dan Weeks from the New Hampshire Rebellion and also Open Democracy.
Thanks for having me once again. Great to be back.
Oh, I'm glad to be back too, Dan. I'm sure you're getting ready for the big primary next month, and I don't know about you, but I'm personally, I'll be glad when it's gone for a while. I mean, I know once February 9th goes, then probably we might get a rest for about a couple of weeks or so. And then we'll be hearing about the governor's race, the senator's race, the congressional race, and all heavy May. You know, of course, if you hear the Boston stations, you'll hear all about it on Boston because I'm not sure when their primary is. I think grouped in with another bunch of states or something.
Yeah, you come later in the spring. Yeah.
I think so, but personally, I am. And what bothered me, the biggest problem I had, and yes, I'm a politician too, somewhat on the state level, but the thing that bothered me the most, they didn't even take a break during Christmas or between Thanksgiving and New Year's, really. When most people wanted to go out shopping for Christmas or enjoy a Christmas party or whatever, we were getting loads of phone calls, not with holiday greetings. Can we take a poll? Do you mind if we? And it was non-stop. And I thought, don't these people have a life? You know, don't they observe Christmas, Hanukkah or something? I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Well, I would argue that part of the reason it's so ridiculous, and it is pretty ridiculous, is that we've got a system where money talks.
Oh yeah.
And where people with a lot of money want to turn that money into political power so they can help change the laws or write the rules in such a way as to give themselves more money. And when you've got a system that allows this unlimited money to flood our politics in every election, and it ain't just this time. You remember last year in 2014 we had the most expensive race in New Hampshire history. The total election in 2014, a midterm, cost $106 million. Majority of that in our state senate, in our U.S. Senate race between Gene Shaheen and Scott Brown. And so you've got a system now where the Supreme Court of the United States, the folks who are supposed to uphold the Constitution by a 5-4 decision, has ruled in Citizens United that corporations, unions, anybody, they don't have to be a human being, can spend unlimited money to directly influence who gets elected. And the result of that, and this should surprise no one because this is basic, self-interest, people given permission to put this unlimited money in, they will do it if they can get a return. The result of that is, as the New York Times reported not long ago, about 150 American families, 158 families, are giving half of the hundreds of millions of dollars that are funding our politics, and they're mostly billionaires or multimillionaires. And they're folks like, well, to give a local example, you may have heard of this Kinder Morgan pipeline, which they're trying to put in through 17
Keene
towns in southern New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Well, one Richard Kinder and Nancy Kinder, his wife, the executive chairman of this company, and a man worth $9 billion, he spent a couple $1 million to influence the presidential election. And this matters to him, I would argue, because the president appoints the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, which, lo and behold, decides what pipelines get approved.
Yeah.
And so if he can elect a president who will put people who favor the pipelines onto the FERC, that couple $1 million he spent on politics might have been the best investment he ever made because of the billions that his company will reap if they can put in this pipeline. So you can take that issue, you can go one issue after another, and whether you think one thing about it or another thing about it, surely we all can agree as Americans that the system of politics, the way we elect our leaders, should not be based on money. It should be based on ordinary voters and the interests that we as citizens have.
Sure.
So that is the work that the New Hampshire Rebellion is trying to do, as you know.
I knew there was a reason why I had a hard time getting funds for my Christmas parade and Christmas tree lighting this year in Concord. I knew there was something going on.
You're in competition with a lot of other campaigns looking for money.
I thought, well, gee, maybe some politician will take pity on me and donate a couple of thousand to the tree lighting or the whatever. But nope, I didn't get 5 cents out of them. But it's sad, though, really, Dan. It's just sad to see money, and I know you say money talks. It talks, and sometimes you'd like to just say, "Shut up." But I mean, it is. It's really sad to think that for the poor person, you know, where they gonna, and then they want people to run for office, but they can't. They can't afford it because you've got. You know, I don't care if it's buttons or pens or signs. I mean, even this year for myself, when I go up for re-election, you know, I'm going to have to buy some new signs this year, and that's a pretty penny sometimes it costs. When you don't have it, you know, it stinks. But
I would argue that one of the worst things that can happen to a country. So we know that leadership counts.
Yeah.
It matters who is elected. It matters if our leaders believe in science, accept, you know, critical, basic information about the state of our world, as one example. When the mechanism by which we choose our leaders is money.
Yeah.
When the first question that is asked of a prospective candidate for public office is, do you have it or can you raise it? Not, you know, what do you stand for?
Yeah.
What are your principles? What is your experience?
Sure.
You know, you mentioned college football or the Super Bowl. If we picked our quarterbacks or our running backs or receivers or any of them based on who could cough up the most money on training day, what kind of football would that be? Nobody would watch that because you'd have Bill Gates running against what maybe Donald Trump would be the quarterback, and
heaven forbid. Yes, I know.
Who knows who else? But if that was the criteria, we'd say that's ridiculous. Nobody would watch it. That would be the end of the NFL. But our politics is based on who's got the money.
Oh, yes.
And that's just not right. And that's why, in addition to trying to make noise about the problem, we are, as the New Hampshire Rebellion and part of Open Democracy, are trying to advocate for some real solutions that we think could fix the problem. And maybe I could mention what some of those are, but we have these nifty $1 million bills adorned with our stamp, not to be used for bribing politicians.
Yes, I just said
which is
not to be used for. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's on my red, yellow paper. But
these stamps are all available online at nhrrebellion.org. And on the back of these $1 million bills, we have our We the People pledge. And the idea is pretty simple. If we want to return to a government that is of, by, and for the people, we the people is how we begin our United States Constitution, then we need a system of choosing our leaders that is based on the wishes of the people.
Sure.
So we need to, for instance, stop the secret money in politics. There was $500 million in the last election in totally undisclosed money. We need to ban bribes or de facto bribes by lobbyists who are directly funding campaigns as they're lobbying for certain issues, or by government contractors. We need to overturn this Supreme Court decision in Citizens United that allowed this unlimited spending. That's a way that we can ban these super PACs. And maybe the single most important reform, when I talk about changing the criteria for choosing our leaders, so that it's the quarterback with the best arm, not the quarterback with the most money on training day, is we need to move to a system of small donor-driven, citizen-funded elections. So candidates should succeed if they can win the support of citizens. And that should be true on election day when people go to the polls, but it should also be true before election day when they fund their campaigns. So we want campaigns that are driven by small donations. And to make it viable for a campaign to actually run on only small donations, not these millions from Mr. Kinder and so on, you need some kind of public incentive. Either a public match on small donations, a voucher where everybody gets $50 that they can give out of their own tax dollars that they can give to the candidate of their choice. And this is a way we could turn the whole system on its head. Instead of having, big money from a few, we could go to small money from many, from the majority of us. And that way, if you, sir, wanted to run for House or for Senate or something else, and you could actually persuade your constituents that, whether they're rich or poor, that your ideas, that you're the right person to represent them, then you could actually fund a real campaign on that basis instead of having to go to the out-of-state donors and the millionaires and so on.
Well, I'll tell you, it's just sad that what you're saying is true. Now, I'm going to take you to one subject. I'm getting a lot of emails about this, what you just said about the Supreme Court there with the Citizens
United.
Yes. Now, explain that again for those who are not familiar with that program, because I'm getting a lot of emails about it. They want us to vote against, I believe, against it or something.
I believe you're referring to Senate Bill 136.
Yes.
Which is actually coming up for a vote on this Wednesday.
I think so, yes, tomorrow.
This is a bill which was passed in the Senate. We managed to work out a bipartisan compromise. And it was passed to say that New Hampshire recognizes the need for a constitutional amendment and calls on Congress to amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United. And this would make, if the House passed this bill, so technically you've probably been hearing from constituents saying to vote against the committee recommendation because the House Legislative Administration Committee recommended that we kill the bill, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So to reject that recommendation and then to vote for passage of the bill, that's what we are calling on representatives to do and what a lot of citizens have been calling their representatives to do. If we did that, if the House passed SB 136, New Hampshire would effectively become the 17th state in America to call on the U.S. Congress to amend the Constitution to stop Citizens United. And this would be a big step forward. We've already had 69 towns in New Hampshire pass local warrant articles in town meeting to say we need to end Citizens United. And we're going to top 100 towns in the next year. We've got a lot more towns getting the signatures, getting it ready for town meeting in 2016. So we are hoping that you and your fellow representatives will reject the committee's recommendation, which was to kill SB 136, and then vote to pass SB 136, so that New Hampshire can take this symbolic step, because there's a lot more steps yet to be taken, but this would be an important symbolic step to say that we need to end Citizens United.
So you're saying you're hoping that the House will vote to kill it, but yet turn around and pass it.
We'll vote against the committee's recommendation, which was to kill it.
Yeah.
So if they vote for it in the first vote, that would kill it. We want them to vote against the committee recommendation first, and then vote to pass the bill outright.
Now I got you. Okay.
The machinations of the legislative process,
but,
as you know.
I have to say though, see, the majority, I haven't had anybody from my district contact me about it. The ones I'm getting are from all through the southern parts of the state, Portsmouth, Nashville, Manchester. Nothing from the Concord that I have had anyway. Now maybe other reps have had it, but I have not had anybody from my area. So I've been studying it on my own, and I'm trying to understand it better. But
I appreciate you studying it. I do know there are a lot of citizens here in Concord who've been marching with us and who've been advocating and testifying. I hope at least some of them pick up the phone and give you a call too.
Well, time is dead, all of you over, but still. I definitely, I just think there's too much big money out there.
Yeah.
Because that's what's controlling it.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, once they get in, what do? Nothing. That's the sad part.
Mm-hmm.
They promise all this stuff, and once they get in, it's sad. Because I tell them too is that basically it's Congress that controls the president. I mean, sure, he can come out or she can come out with all these promises, but it's really Congress that's going to pass it or whatever else. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are deeply concerned about the state of our democracy. And it isn't just for the sake of democracy, although I think that's an end in itself, but when you look at the individual issues that people care about. I mentioned Kinder Morgan, and I grew up in one of those small towns in Temple, which is along that pipeline route, and this would have a huge impact on our communities. It's a complicated issue, and people can take either side, but we surely can agree that money shouldn't determine, and Mr. Kinder shouldn't be able to bankroll presidential campaigns. But for folks north of here, the Northern Pass project has been a hot topic.
That's quieted down. I don't understand. All of a sudden, that's been on the back burner or something up there.
I suspect it'll be coming back soon,
I do too,
as there are more hearings. But again, when you follow the money, so as I'm sure your viewers know, the Northern Pass project would erect these massive 155-foot towers cutting through the White Mountains, including through protected lands, to bring Hydro-Quebec electricity south, a lot of it to serve southern New England. And this project, it's one thing to debate the project itself, but when we look at the political gamesmanship, the number one lobbying client in the last couple of years has been the Northern Pass project. So the folks who want to install this Northern Pass have been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars each year, while the opposition spends almost nothing because they don't have the money. So big companies that are in favor of this project have been trying to buy political influence. They've also been making a lot of campaign contributions. And yet, in every one of the hearings, there have been thousands of statements submitted in these public hearings, and almost all of them have been opposed to the project. So it seems like we have the will of the citizens here, and I'm not saying they're opposed to any transmission lines, but to these 155-foot towers, there's very strong opposition.
Sure.
We could bury the lines. But you've got the citizens here, and then you've got a couple of big companies that stand to benefit a lot, who don't seem to have the public with them, but who have a lot of money. And they're trying to buy influence by lobbying to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars and contributing to campaigns. So again, we believe that whatever your issue, whether you're liberal or conservative, the system within which we address or fail to address these different issues is broken. And we need to start by fixing our democracy.
Oh, I know. It's a mess. And again, it's because of big money out there. It amazes me because of all the money that's being spent on these elections and things. Look what that could do for people who have the homeless or the underprivileged. I mean, look at the money that's being pushed on this one election. And all these candidates that signed up back when now are dropping out. And it makes you wonder how many after New Hampshire's primary, who's going to be left after that.
It is still a pretty wide open field.
Now, if I remember right, Dan, your group is nonpartisan. You're not really out there promoting one or the other. So you're nonpartisan, which is good.
We are partisans for the cause, and we're trying to get liberal and conservative candidates to come aboard. And there are a lot of respected citizens who are Republicans and Democrats who are part of this cause. It is a bipartisan cause.
Yeah. I had curiosity though. How did you get involved in all this? You're a young guy, and at least I think you're still in your 20s. I think you're 30s now.
32.
Are you really? I thought you were still in your 20s. But how did you ever get involved in all this? I mean, I'm surprised you're not a politician. As far as being a state rep or a state senator or maybe something even higher you want to go for, but you don't. Do you have any aspirations like that?
I appreciate you asking how I got involved, and the story is kind of a funny one. I was sort of your unsuspecting teenager attending high school at Conval in Peterborough, New Hampshire. And, you know, like a lot of my peers, I cared about making the team. I loved sports, making good grades. I wanted to go to a good college, you know, teenage things. And obviously wanted to have friends and be popular and all that good stuff. And in the course of my high school years, I had a couple of amazing teachers and one very amazing outside influence who started to get me thinking about politics and who helped me to see not just political issues, but the political system and how it was broken. And a particular, very important influence in my life was a famous, legendary Granite Stater by the name of Granny D.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Doris Haddock, a.k.a. Granny D, who, when she was 90 years old, walked across America 3,200 miles from California to Washington, D.C. to fix our democracy, to get big money out of politics. And she finished her walk as I was in high school, and she came back home to Dublin, where she lived.
That's where she was from.
And she spoke at Conval. And I got to know her. And over the last 10 years of her life, she passed away 5 years ago at the age of 100.
Yay.
I got to work closely with her, and she helped me to see how the various issues that I cared about, you know, the cost of college and the education system, climate change, and, you know, a healthy environment, and so on, each of these issues, like Northern Pass and Kinder Morgan, they came back to money and politics. And I became really persuaded that this had to be where we begin. And if I ever had the chance, once I finished college, to go to work for this, to earn my keep doing this work, damned if I wouldn't do it. And I feel like the luckiest guy I know, because I get to wake up and do work that I'm really passionate about. And one of these days we're going to solve this problem.
Well, I mean, you're obviously a go-getter, and you're very much a people person. And did you go? You went to college or no? Did you go?
I did.
Which one did you go?
I went to Yale University.
Oh, yes, so to Ivy League.
I was very, very fortunate from a public high school to have the chance to go there. And frankly, part of the reason that I got to go there, that they accepted me, was because honestly, I feel like it's a huge blessing when at an early age you can find what you're passionate about. And I found this issue of trying to fix our democracy, and I became really passionate about it. And as a high school kid, with the support of amazing teachers and principals, I'm in touch with some of them still, like Joni O'Donnell, who used to take us up to Concord for Youth in Government to participate, to sit in the seats of the legislators and realize what it was about. I became really passionate, and passion drives us to do bigger things. And I think really as a result of that, I had the chance to go on to Yale and to Oxford and to be in a position where I can do this work. I feel very, very fortunate.
My nephews both got involved with Youth in Government. That was a great, I mean, we went up and watched them. It was quite an experience watching that program.
You know, for any young people who might be watching, or parents of young people, it goes without saying that our democracy matters, and it depends on people caring. But I really wish that more people of my generation and those that are even younger coming after me could get a little taste for, honestly, how meaningful it can be, how much fun it can be, and how worthwhile it can be to sign up for something like the Youth in Government program through the YMCA. A lot of high schools offer it, to get a taste for how laws are made, and to even write laws of their own and vote on them and debate them. Because I think a lot of people might discover a passion a little bit like mine. Not everybody has to be a political junkie. I don't know what the world would be like if we were all political junkies, but at least to know enough to be able to make your voice heard. A lot of people feel powerless, and that really makes me sad. A lot of people don't vote.
No, they don't.
And unfortunately, as long as we keep tuning out and giving up on politics, politics is going to basically give up on us. A lot of people feel like it's given up on us, and we've got to take the first step to not give up on politics.
Well, Dan, the problem is that most people, the remark you'll hear them say is that my vote don't count. You know, my vote doesn't matter. You know, and unfortunately, they will come out for the presidential, whether or not it's because the campaigns have got them out or drive them to the polls, but they will come out for the presidential. And then all of a sudden you don't see them again for another 4 years because they have no interest in the city elections and really not much in the state elections on the off year, but unless there's a race going on. But it is sad that a lot of them feel that their vote don't count, so why bother? Which it does.
And although it makes me mad, I gotta say I'm sympathetic also.
Yeah.
And it is part of what motivates us to do this work of getting big money out of politics.
Yeah.
Because when we go on to ask people, why do you think your vote doesn't count? What we hear over and over again is, it's all about the money.
Yeah.
They don't care about my interests. I'm not represented. And so we believe that this is part of the answer. You know, we look at other democracies around the world.
Yeah.
Folks like Canada just to the north, or the United Kingdom. And across all the other advanced democracies, voter turnout is a whole lot higher than it is here. And as it happens across all these other democracies, the amount of money in politics is a whole lot less. And the ability of billionaires like Richard Kinder to fund politics, that's against the law there. They have public funding of campaigns. So if we could have a system where the candidates are chosen more democratically and where their campaigns are funded democratically, I believe we would see people starting to care more and to believe more that they have a voice, and that would be a pretty important thing for our democracy.
You suppose it's because they feel that you suppose if we had the elections on Sunday or Saturday, maybe you get a better turnout than Tuesday?
You know, as it happens, a lot of our other Democratic peers do that as well.
Yeah.
In addition to fixing the money in politics, you're absolutely right. We've got to remove some of these silly barriers that are totally unnecessary, that stand in the way of voting. We should have automatic voter registration. The state of Oregon just implemented their new system. You know, when I turned 18, I was informed in a piece of mail that I was automatically signed up for the draft for the Selective Service.
Oh, yeah.
If, God forbid, there's ever another draft. If they can sign me up for that, surely they can sign me up to vote. So you could remove that barrier. You could make voting day a weekend or a holiday.
Sure.
These kinds of steps would make a big difference in getting people to polls, and we ought to do them as well as fixing the big money issue. And I just got to say, if folks are feeling like they're ready to take one step to do something, because it requires that people do something, that they join this effort. We call on everybody to take this We the People pledge, which calls on the presidential candidates to support this agenda at nhrrebellion.org. And we invite people to join the We the People convention on primary weekend, February 5th to 7th. We're erecting a massive tent in downtown Manchester in Veterans Park. It will be heated. And in this tent, we'll have presidential candidates, we'll have national speakers, liberals and conservatives, and we hope that citizens will join us there at the We the People convention on February 5th to 7th in Manchester.
You know what's interesting is that the New Hampshire State Grange that I'm involved in, we're having a legislative fly-in that weekend at the Radisson down in Manchester.
Come across the street.
Because we're doing they're expecting, I think they're expecting several hundred to fly in to New Hampshire from all over the states for this legislative. They do it every year, but for this legislative fly-in, and supposedly we've got a lot of candidates and the press going to be in there too. We're going to be having them come in and speak and things. So.
Great.
Well,
we hope you'll
I'll keep you in the loop.
Cross the street and join the convention for some of the fun in the tent.
Yeah, and I'll keep you in tune to that, because maybe you'd want to come over and talk about people.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah. I just think the whole thing, like I said, people are so tired of it. I mean, the other thing too is, I know, is that people who come to vote are tired of being intimidated. They feel intimidated to walk up that path to the polling place. You know, even though we're supposed to be far enough away from the door for them to go in there, you got people jumping out at them and don't forget to vote, don't forget to vote, vote for my, you know, and people, they know who they're going to vote for when they get there. But there's always this intimidation. And I think that's another thing that people don't like doing.
We got a lot of work to do to make this democracy sound, but I appreciate the chance to talk about what we're doing, and I hope that
Dan.
Viewers will check out nhrebellion.org and join the fun.
Well, thanks for joining us on here, and if you have any questions, again, we can get you on Facebook. You know, a phone number that you want to call you at?
Best way, all that info is on the website. nhrebellion.org.
Okay, good. Thanks for joining us in Around Town. Thank you to Immaculate Heart of Mary for my studio here that I'm using, and also to my director, Ian Marks, and we'll hopefully see you soon in the coming weeks. With that in mind, I'm Dick Patten, your host. Thanks for joining us in Around Town.